Welcome, Wolfpack families. It is so nice to be here with you this evening. My name is Carrie Fowler, and I'm the Executive Director of Parents and Family Services. It feels like it's been a minute. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you have been with us before, welcome again. If you are new to NC State, we are Parents and Family Services. We are a program dedicated to supporting our families, and we go Facebook Live at least once a month, sometimes a little bit more, giving families the information they need from our campus partners. Tonight, our featured partner is University Housing. And before we get to them, we do have one important announcement and save the date that we want to share with everyone. So if you don't know, we have our upcoming Spring Fling weekend happening February 21st through the 23rd. Registration is now open. It closes on February 9th. And right below, you'll see we've got people working behind the scenes, dropping links as we're talking about them. So one of the first links they're going to drop is the registration link for Spring Fling. Now, some of our events are full, but not all of them. We still have regional dinners in downtown Raleigh available. We have our ever popular Pack in Action sibling event on Friday night. Our newest event this year is Wolfpack Family Comedy Night. We've got one, not two, but three talents that we're bringing to campus that we're super excited about on Saturday. Our beloved Paint with the Pack event that's happening on Sunday morning. And the picture that you see on the screen here, this starry night over Raleigh, that is the painting that we will be guiding everyone through. No art experience needed. Just bring your appetite for brunch and your creativity, and you'll get to take this piece of artwork home with you. And then we have our service project, which benefits University Housing. So it is a partnership between us, you, your students, and University Housing to beautify one of the areas around campus. And it's something that we used to do way back when, and we're excited to bring it back into the fold for this year for our Spring Fling weekend. So we hope that you will join us. If you haven't already talked to your student about this, check the schedule out, talk to them, see if some or all of the events are of interest to any or all of your family. And if you're not interested, still make a plan to come and see and spend the weekend with your student, because ultimately that's what our big weekends are about you coming to campus and experiencing the NC State community with your student. With that, we are really excited about some of our other initiatives that we have. So we have our second year initiative coming up. We're just jumping right back into spring with all of the events. So our second year initiative is a program that supports our families of second year students. We have our third call, so it's a 4-part webinar series, and we have our third one happening next Thursday, so 1 week from today. And if you haven't attended before, that's okay. If you just want to hop into the conversation, please do. Again, we're dropping those links right below here in the chat. And then we have our weekly coffee chats. And these happen every week, Tuesdays and Fridays when classes are in session. You can jump on, ask questions, say hello. We've got staff, we've got students, and it's just their virtual office hours essentially. So we hope that you will join us for that. Come say hello. We'd love to chat with you. Go ahead to the next slide, which I believe is off to our featured presenters. And so I'm going to hand it over to Katrina with University Housing, but I want to remind all of our viewers that we are taking questions live in the chat. So one of the benefits of our Facebook Live is that you get to ask questions as you're hearing the information, and we have people behind the scenes ready to answer those questions. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Thanks, Carrie. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us and for taking a little bit of time out of your evening to let us talk to you a little bit about room selection. So the focus tonight is on our returning student room selection process. Before I get any further, I came home to do this webinar tonight, and my dog thinks it's time for me to play with her. So I apologize if she misbehaves during this. But with the cold weather, I thought it might be better to get home. So, but anyway, we're going to go ahead and talk about room selection tonight. And I'm going to walk through some of the process, answer some questions to help you understand what this process looks like for your student moving forward. So we'll get on to the next slide here. So I want to talk a little bit about what room selection is and what room selection is not. Actually, I should probably finish my introduction. Sorry, my dog sidetracked me. My name is Katrina Pavlock. I'm the Director for Administration and Occupancy Management in University Housing. So I oversee all the housing assignment processes within university housing. And one of our biggest process is the room selection process for returning students. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of what it means and what it doesn't mean. So to start with, the room selection and process is geared completely to returning students, and it's current NC State students who are looking for on-campus housing for the next academic year. So that's what room selection really focuses on. This is not for our incoming first-year students. This is only for our current students looking to return to housing for the next academic year. The application deadline is important because that deadline lets us know how many students are actually interested in returning to housing with us. So that kind of gives us a guide as to, what that process is going to look like. How many spaces do we have? How many students do we have interested? So that application deadline is really important. And that deadline is actually February 2nd. So that is coming up very quickly. And after that deadline, students will not be able to participate in room selection. That doesn't mean they couldn't get a housing for the next academic year. It's just they won't be able to participate in the process. And they're assigned sort of later on. In room selection, roommate groups are extremely important because one of the things about room selection is that groups have to be able to fill the space that they're selecting. For example, if I was in a roommate group and we wanted to select an apartment at Wolf Village, that's 4 bedrooms. So we would need a roommate group of 4 in order to select an apartment at Wolf Village or Wolf Ridge. If I was looking for a double room, I would just need a roommate group with 1 other person, and that would allow me to select a double room. So that's what the roommate group piece is really important. So if your student is interested in coming back, doesn't have a roommate group, there are some opportunities that we're going to share in a little bit that we provide to help students try to find a roommate group. So there are options that we can help them, but it's important for them to start asking around in their classes, in their clubs, in their organizations, in their current residence hall, if anyone is looking. So it's important for them to start talking about that now. After the application deadline, we will get a list of everybody who's in the process, and then we will group them by their class. So current freshmen or students with less than 62 credits will be in our first selection option, and they will get the first times. And then there'll be the rising juniors and then the rising seniors. So rising sophomores or current freshmen select first in room selection. The philosophy behind that is similar to our philosophy behind the freshman live-on requirement. That, we have that live-on requirement because we know that students that live on campus do better academically, socially, they connect better with the university, all the things that help them to succeed academically. So we follow that same train of thought by having our current freshmen or rising sophomores be the first group to select housing for the next academic year. And then thinking that by the time you become a senior, you might be better prepared for an off-campus experience than you would be if you were a rising sophomore. So we will assign times based on those sort of groupings. Once your student has their roommate group and they get their room selection time, they will want to make the person in their group that has the best time or the earliest room selection time their group leader. And the group leader will actually be the person that's going to go into the process and select the space for them and their group. So it's important that they make sure that it's a person who has the best time. And time slots are randomly assigned in those 3 groups. So there's no sort of thing like on credit hours or anything like that. It's just once you're in a group like rising sophomores, rising juniors, rising seniors, it's randomly assigned in there. So they definitely want to pay attention when they get their time slots to take a look at their roommate group. Now, once a student is assigned to housing, or they select housing for themselves or as part of a roommate group, they are committed to housing. And that is when the contract and the cancellation terms become effective. So the application alone does not commit students to housing. It just gives them an opportunity to get into the process. So they're not committed to anything until they actually select a space or get assigned a space as part of a roommate group. The important thing also to know about this application is it does not guarantee them housing. So the only students that are guaranteed or are required to live in housing are freshmen, incoming freshmen. After that, it's an optional thing. So this application does not guarantee them and does not commit them to anything. So it gives them an option to go in there and see what's available. And if they're like, I don't want to live there, if that's all that's left, they have the option to walk away. So it is important to know that our apartments do go fast in room selection because that is the thing that most students are looking for. So I always encourage roommate groups or students in general to have their plan A. So plan A is the thing that they want to do. They've done their homework. This is where we want to be, but to also have plan B, plan C, and plan D before they ever go into the process. And then they're not panicked, or they know, okay, if I can't get this, then this is my option. Or if I can't get this, I'm going to do this. So then they're not stressed out or panicked in the process. They already have a plan in place before they go. And one other thing is the room selection process is not an opportunity for them to sort of shop around. So once they select a space or their group leader selects a space, they cannot change that space during room selection. So they're in that. There are several steps in the process that they have to confirm the selection of before they finalize. So we try to make sure that they are confident in what they're doing before they finalize it because they can't make a change during the process. So that is absolutely an important thing for them to know. And again, one of the important things is once they make that selection or their group leader makes a selection for housing, they are then committed. And I believe our folks are going to drop the link to the cancellation policy because that does become in effect once housing is selected. That was a whole lot of information. So we're going to get to a Q&A thing in just a second. But these are a couple of important dates that we want to make sure folks know. So I mentioned earlier, the February 2nd deadline is for students to complete the room selection application. Again, letting us know that they are interested in coming back into housing. Everyone in a roommate group has to have completed this application or they won't be able to be part of a roommate group. So that is very important too, is if your student is talking to you about housing for next year, tell them to make sure that everyone in their roommate group has completed that application because after that deadline, they will not be able to do that. And then if they're looking for folks to join a roommate group, there are 3 events here. They are listed here, January 28th, 30th, and the 4th, where we will do some roommate finding events. And these are opportunities for students to come and see or find a group that is maybe looking for, they got 3, but they're looking for a 4th, or they got 2 looking for 2 more for an apartment. And we have seen through these roommate events where students will come and be like, oh my God, I didn't know you were looking for. And they literally walk in the door, find out they know somebody, and they're done and they're out the door. So these are great opportunities if your student really doesn't know what they want to do or who they want to live with, or again, they're just short a person in their roommate group. These are great opportunities, and I think we're going to drop a link to the page that gives the details behind each one of these events, the time and the location. And then the last thing I want to mention is if your student decides not to go through on-campus housing through this process, maybe they are not able to select a space or they don't want to select from what we have, there is a spring housing fair coming up on March 28th. And that will be an opportunity for some off-campus apartments that will come and will be on site for students to be able to visit off-campus apartments to see who is still has space for leasing and things like that. So this is a great opportunity. Again, if your student is still looking for an off-campus option, if on-campus is not working out for them. So that is my little spiel. So I'm going to open it up for any questions folks may have. So if there's any questions out there.
Kieran, do you have questions that you want to get us started with?
Yes. So my name's Kieran. I'm a parent ally working with the Department of Parents and Family Services, just to do a brief introduction. But so one of the questions that we have is, can the group leader be designated after the application deadline?
Absolutely. Yeah. And they can have somebody be a group leader today. And then once they get their actual room selection times, which will be after the February 2nd deadline, they can go back in and change the group leader. So the roommate group process will stay live throughout this process. So they will be able to go in at any point in time and make adjustments to their group, make adjustments to who the group leader is. Because sometimes when it comes down to the apartments are all gone, they might have to separate the group of 4 into 2 groups of 2. So that's why we leave that whole process live throughout this whole selection process.
Thank you. So next question. Do students commit for housing for the entire year, or is it semester by semester?
It is for the academic year. It looks like they're signing up semester by semester because that's how the student accounts bills, but the actual housing agreement is for a full academic year. Now, if a student is graduating in December, studying abroad for the spring, or doing a co-op for the spring, those are reasons why we would automatically release them from their housing agreement for the spring semester at no penalty. So there are some ways living on campus allows them to get out of their agreement, where off campus it's a little more challenging, but we're a little more understanding about the December graduates, study abroad, and internships and things like that.
Thank you. So the next question is, if a student is in a group of 4 and apartments are full, how and when do they have to break their group into 2 sets of 2?
Perfect question. So the way that our process is set up is their roommate group size will drive what they see. So if I'm in a group of 4 and I log into room selection and my time, I'm only going to see spaces that meet groups of 4. So if I don't see anything, and typically we will put an announcement on the page as well that lets students know apartments have all been selected. And at that point, to see what is available, that is when they would need to break up their roommate group of 4 into groups of 2, or however else they are looking to split up their group. Then they will see additional spaces that meet groups of 2. So if they're not seeing anything, they might have to adjust their roommate group size to see that. We do have some apartments that are for 2 students. E.S. King, we have several buildings that are designated as they're 1-bedroom apartments for 2 students. And we are actually adding 12 more for the next academic year out at E.S. King. So we're adding some additional apartment options for students as well.
Thank you. So the next question is, are credits based on time at NC State or overall credits earned?
It is overall credits earned. So that is why when it comes to the first group, we say it is current freshmen and students with less than 62 credits, because a lot of our students come in with a lot of credits already, so we don't want them to be at a disadvantage. So if they're current freshmen and or students with less than 62 credits, they're in the first grouping. And that's kind of how we make it a fair process and doesn't put anybody in a disadvantage for coming in with a lot of credits.
Thank you. The next question says, how many students are needed for a group in Wolf Village? Is it only 4?
So in Wolf Village, it is only 4. There are some studio apartments in Wolf Village, very, very few of them. And most of those are assigned to students with medical needs because there are so few. Wolf Ridge is basically the same. You need a group of 4. Now in Wolf Ridge, there are some 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, but those are committed to graduate students. So when it comes to Wolf Ridge or Wolf Village, undergraduate students will need a group of 4.
Thank you. So I think this is going to be the last question of the night. This question says, what happens if a student misses the room selection application deadline?
The general housing application will go live on February 24th. But they will be in our waitlist process, and we will work through assigning students after everyone with a room selection time has had an opportunity. So it doesn't mean they can't get housing. It just means they're going to be need to be a little more patient with our process. Because one of the things I do say about room selection is if a student is looking for a guarantee on being with somebody, a particular person, or being in a particular location, there's no way I can guarantee that. Short of them having the very first time, there's no way I can guarantee. But if they want housing and are willing to be flexible and are willing to stay patient, we are typically able to get students into housing as long as they're open to whatever options we do have available and are flexible with us. It just means they have to be patient with us.
Thank you so much. The housing process for roommate selection always seems heavy. I know it always comes with a lot of questions and there's a big formal process to it. But to your point, if everyone just kind of stays patient, and to my favorite, one of my all-time favorite quotes, and that's trust the process, it usually does tend to work out to the benefit of everyone and get them on their place. And I don't envy the job that you have, Katrina, by any means. There's a lot that goes into it, but we are here to help answer any additional questions that families may have. And if we don't have the answer, we can get you in touch with the people that do. So I just want to say a special thank you to taking your time to explain all of this, because I think once we understand the process a little bit better, it helps us when we begin to go into that process. So appreciate you this evening.
Absolutely.
A couple of reminders before we wrap up our time together, some upcoming dates that you'll just want to note. As I mentioned earlier, our second year initiative, session 3 is next Thursday, January 30th. Our Spring Fling registration closes on February 9th. So Spring Fling is February 21st to the 23rd, but the registration is going to close on the 9th. So you'll want to make sure to go in and get your tickets for any events that you are interested in before then. February 11th is a wellness day for our students, staff, and faculty, and so there are no classes on that day. Encourage your student to take advantage of the many resources and activities that really do support our overall wellness, mental health, physical health, and well-being, and just a day to step back and relax and enjoy. That's what those wellness days are for. And then our next Facebook Live, we will be coming back to you in just a couple of weeks on March 6th, and we'll be talking everything summer sessions. So if you missed any of this, if you joined us late, the best thing about Facebook Lives is that you can pause and come back to it or start it over and continue to ask questions and make comments below if needed. It will live here and also on our newest resource, which is our YouTube page. And so we will drop a link to that in the comments as well, where we are storing all of our videos too. So with that being said, we'll go ahead to our final slide, which is just our wrap-up slide that says thank you to everyone for being here. A reminder to all of you to connect with us. Visit our website if you have questions, email us, call us. That's what we're here for. Everyone behind the scenes tonight, Kieran, Monica, Haley, thank you all for helping us make this a success and getting all the technology in place and up and running. Always the most difficult part. And a special thanks to Katrina for joining us this evening. With that, we will send you all back. Thank you for being with us, and go Wolfpack.